Good morning. This is Jen, and today I want to talk about some ideas that people have about the federal government paying for their utilities or issuing them a black credit card that they're not allowed to talk about, or some of the other things that people think the government's going to pay for. The problem is that you're reading the federal laws and you are still thinking that they apply to you, and they don't. None of them apply to you. They apply because you're a citizen of the United States, and so they use that against you. But if you want your freedom, you can't be a citizen of the United States. And furthermore, the government doesn't pay individuals in their private capacity for anything. You can go, if it were true that they did, you would be able to go on a military post and you would be able to find people getting their electricity paid, or they would be issued a black credit card. I mean, if anybody would know these things, it would be them. And the enlisted ranks, they don't keep things secret. They tell their buddies everything. Eventually it would have gotten out if there was a program so great and wonderful that you would be issued a black credit card, or that you would get your utilities paid for. So the way it works when you're in the military is that you're government property, and being government property, they're supposed to take care of you. So when I lived in government housing, no, I didn't get a utility bill because it's considered necessary. I didn't get a water bill. But if I wanted internet or a phone or anything like that, I would have to pay for that. So there's necessities and then there's non-necessities. If they needed to get a hold of me and I lived on post, then they would just send the duty driver to get a hold of me if I didn't have a phone. And when I was in, we didn't have cell phones. So there's things that the government pays for and things that they don't. The housing comes with utilities, some utilities, water, electricity. There's no one who lives off post who gets their electricity paid for. If you choose to live off post, you get a housing allowance and they pay for a portion of your rent. Or they pay you according to your rate, and whatever you can find, you just go and you find it and you pay whatever they don't give you. It's an entirely different system. But there's nothing in any of the laws that I know of or I've ever heard of where the government is going to give people, private citizens, us supposed to be private citizens, a black credit card to spend on whatever we want, but we can't tell anybody about it. I mean, right there, you should know that that's BS, because we're working to get this, but nobody can know anything about it. There are people out there who will do anything and say anything to get likes on their videos, to get you to come, pay them to speak at your meetings, and all these other kind of things, and it's just ridiculous. You can't be so gullible and naive that you fall for these things. So I'm going to try to help you understand some of the stuff that government pays for itself and its posts and departments, and what it doesn't pay for. So you have the seat of government here, and I know this is probably hard to see, but I'm going to take a picture of it and put it on the screen so that you can get it. But this is the seat. This is Congress, Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia. Okay, and then coming off are states. So there's states attached to the seat, right? We know that. And then inside each state, there's posts, military posts, or post offices. On a post, there's departments. Okay, a variety of departments. You've got public works. You've got, the essential kind of things. Public works, HRO, environmental, a safety office, an employment opportunity office. I think that's an HRO. Adjunct general. They've got, then they've got their mission offices. So you have a variety of weapons offices, ordnance offices. If there's a college there, they have colleges and libraries and arms centers and warfare academies, all different kinds of offices. Okay, so post offices, because they have a lot of offices on posts. And each of these posts, and each of these posts, so let's take Kelly Air Force Base. Kelly Air Force Base has to, every fiscal year, get together all of the stuff that it wants to buy and all the training it needs to do. So you have a civilian side that are requirements to achieve your mission, and then you have a military side that's requirement to achieve the mission. So the seat will set up a mission for the military, goals and objectives and all this kind of stuff. The post receive the missions, and then they set up their missions, how they're going to achieve the missions, because on every post there's different objectives. That's the reason why the post is there. Like I said, one may be a Navy Warfare Academy. One may be, one of the places I worked was weapons tests. So they did a lot of testing weapons there. So they had the Naval Air Weapons Test Squadrons. And they had, their objectives as far as testing weapons. So each post has its own objectives it has to achieve, and then those objectives are given to each department. So each department is laid out their own objective according to whatever it is they do. HRO, we need to hire 10 more people to achieve this mission. Public Works, we have to get these buildings set up so that we can have more conferences, because now we need more conferences to achieve these missions. Possibly for a weapons test squadron, well, we need more weapons, we need more test equipment, we need all our aircraft to be flying, because the Navy has aircraft also. They need all their aircraft to fly so that they can test these weapons in a timely manner and get them either out into the fleet or send them back to the manufacturer and tell them this doesn't work. This does work, we want to buy these, we're going to send them out into the fleet. The fleet is where the ships are and the airplanes are, and they're actually doing, the other part of the mission, which is the active part. All this takes money. Okay, the money has to come through the state to the seat because it's combined. Now, what I didn't put in here and what I should have put in here was regions. So states are set up in regions. Okay, so like these two states might be a region, these states might be a region, and maybe there's more states and there might be a region. Of course, I didn't put all the states, I didn't put all the posts, I'm just showing you. Okay, now to achieve the mission and to make sure that they have enough money to achieve the mission and enough resources, the seat of government appropriates money. Okay, so there's things that they will always appropriate money for. Okay, always, no matter what, they will appropriate money for base, each post, base, installation, area, military reservation, whatever you want to call it. In the Constitution, they're called posts. Each post has things that it needs just to stay open, just to be there. So there may be issues with making payments for land that they're leasing. There may be issues with electricity because the military pays companies for their electricity. There are televisions, there are internet. So when I say televisions, I mean cable. They have cable TV so that they can watch the news, like the garrison commander or the admiral or the captain. He might have a television in their office or somewhere around their office where they can watch the news. So if something happens, they will get an email probably, and then they'll watch what the news says, so they know what's going on. The public affairs officer, he would probably have a television in his office, so they need cable, they need internet, they have to pay for these things also, they don't get them for free. Each post has its own utility bill because they pay utilities. They pay utility companies. They hire, if they have a water company on their post, they hire their own employees to run their water company. They may be contract, they may be civil service. I think usually they're contract, but sometimes they're considered part of public works. Each post does things a little bit differently depending on where it's at and what resources it has available to it. Okay, so maintenance of roads, maintenance of buildings, sewage, waste. Okay, let's see, there's skeleton people or essential personnel that are always going to be employed, always going to be there. They're going to get called in during emergencies. They're military people. They all have to get paid because they belong to the government, and so their money is always appropriated. Their pay is always appropriated, okay? Offices on the civil side, they have some employees that are also called essential, and they have to get paid because they're going to be called in during an emergency. Let's see. Civil servants can always be let go, as far as not fired, but released from the obligation of coming in, okay? So in some situations, the civil servants will get paid, but they won't have to come to work. And in other positions of civil service, they don't get paid. They're called furloughed, I think. Okay, so all these offices need supplies. The different departments that are actually doing work, they need equipment. So, for example, I worked on F-18s. The parts on those F-18s are really expensive. Well, when a post does its budget, it writes down everything that it's going to need, or it's projecting everything it's going to need. So they know they're going to need some office supplies. They know they're going to need employee pays. They know they're going to need travel. So a lot of people say that they get this black credit card. Well, each department has a credit card to go buy stuff. So what happens is the departments give the budget to the post. The post gives the department to the region. The regions get together and give the budget to the seat of Congress. Okay? All this stuff has got to be included, including each person, civil or military, who's going to do any traveling, who needs any training. That's what the managers do. They budget all this stuff, okay? And that's what the post commanders do. They budget, and then they send them all together. They give them to the region, and then they give them to the seat, okay? So then the seat goes through, and they decide, what are we going to pay for and what are we not going to pay for? So if you saw my video on how the military, the DOD, lied to Congress to get Congress to give them money, which it seemed like a lot of people liked that video, give Congress money, then they have to write all this stuff down. But what they did was they faked a lot of stuff. They said that they were getting results that they didn't get so that they could ask Congress for the money and Congress would give it to them. And they thought that they would just get the results after they got the money, even though they lied and said that they had the results before. So I have a video on that. And that's what the military does. The military uses deceptive practices. That's what military is. It's a group of people who practice deception to get what they want or to win wars, right? So that's where their mind goes. That's what they do. They're not supposed to use it when it comes to Congress and the public money, but they do. So they all get their budgets together. They give it to the seat. The seat goes through it. They cross out the things they're not going to pay for. They're going to reduce everybody's budget. So that's why these people, they always ask for more than what they need. They over project what they need. They over budget. They over budget by so much money. They send it to the seat. The seat pretends to say, well, we're only going to give you 80% or 75%. It's a game. It's a game. They know that they're going to reduce it. They reduce it. It looks like the seat is reducing costs. They're not, because it's just this game, right? You get it. So appropriated is what the seat allows, okay? Those are the appropriated funds for the money that the posts say that they need for what they need it for. So all the money goes into like an account, okay? And everybody on post gets their share. So the seat will give the Army so much money. They'll give the Navy so much money. They'll give the Coast Guard so much money. They'll give environmental offices so much money. And then the post takes it and they divide it up, and it's all going through a banking system. That's why the banks were originally set up. The banks were originally set up to help the military posts figure out all their money situation, because back in the day, one man was in charge of the money on each post. And they found that these men would get the money, and it was easy for one person to just lie or steal the money. They would take the money, leave post, because the military is like a foreign nation. It's an island in a state. It's like a foreign nation. So the guy would leave the post, and the only thing the government could do was summons him inside the state. Okay, if the state couldn't find him, or he ran to another state or whatever, that was a problem, because they couldn't do anything but summons. They have no law enforcement off post, okay? And they have no jurisdiction off post. That's the way it was until Lincoln changed it all. And I wrote about that, or I told you about that in my legal state video. Okay, so each post, each region gets the money, each military gets the money. It goes into an account. Like when I was the credit card holder for my department, I had a budget. I had so much money I could spend every month. Okay, that was allotted to me. It was all laid out. Okay, it was all accounting, and I could go and use the credit card, and I was expected to spend every penny that they gave me. That way, it always looked like I needed every cent they gave me. And so I would go and I would use the various contractors, like Goodwill has services that it provides for the government, and other organizations like blind people, they work for the government as contractors, and we're supposed to purchase from them first. If we can't get it from them, like a lot of the videotapes I bought for safety training, which they probably all do online now. They were starting to move towards that back in like 04, 05. We would get videotapes, safety training videotapes. They didn't offer any contracts through any companies so that I could get them cheap through them. I had to go somewhere else. I had to do shopping, and in order to do that, I had to, price compare. I had to get 3 things, price comparisons done. And I had to show my documentation before I could spend the money, and then I had to pick, and then I had to get it approved. And then, we had to go to the bank, and then every month I had to go through all my purchases through the bank, and I had to say, yes, I bought that. Yes, I bought that. Yes, I bought that. Yes, I bought that. All this was for office supplies or what equipment or what have you. And that was called, I forget what that was called. But it's when you go to the bank and you do that, and then you print it off, and then you take it to the accountant, and she looks over it, or he looks over it, and they pass your budget that, yes, you spent the money appropriately. Yes, you had all your signatures. So when it comes to this kind of thing, I know probably a little bit more than what other people who have never worked for the government know to be true. So utilities is one of the things that the government pays for its military and all their departments and stuff. So each post has to have a contract with a utility company, like a local utility company. Okay, they do travel through Hertz, they do travel through American Airlines, they do, you know, regular things to get things done, that when you go, or some people go and they read the regulations, they think, oh, I'm supposed to get free travel. I'm supposed to get a credit card. I'm supposed to get my utilities paid for. No, 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 because all of these departments and posts are considered businesses attached to the district. The district is a jurisdiction, and the jurisdiction is a seat of government, okay? And the seat of government has power and authority, okay? We can talk about instrumentalities also, but instrumentalities are corporations such as the Federal Reserve Bank that are hired to do work to help the post and the departments. We were never, people not in the government, not federal officers and employees, were never supposed to be using that stuff. And in one of the congressional records, it says that they wanted the land that the banks sat on to be under the seat of government jurisdiction, attached to the District of Columbia, because they knew that the states would tax the banks out of business. They would tax them right out of the state. So they made them so that the state had no jurisdiction over it, and it was attached to the district. District is a jurisdiction of Columbia, so it's attached to the District of Columbia, the jurisdiction of Columbia. The Federal Reserve Bank, the IRS, the FDA, the CDC, none of those, the Red Cross, and all of these other organizations that you've never even heard of, have no power or authority over you. They can only ask you, will you fill out our forms, because the forms are considered solicitations or advertisements. Okay, so we've got that out of the way. So appropriated funds are the funds that Congress allows to be given to the posts and the departments to spend in order to complete the mission that the seat of government gives to the posts and actually probably the Army, Navy, Marine, Air Force, Coast Guard, and all the other departments. And then they divvy it up between a post, or probably the regions, and then the regions divvy it up between the states, and then the posts, and then the departments. And they appropriate money for things such as pay, supplies, travel, training, equipment, housing, mission essentials, and utilities, which may include cable, water, internet, okay? Computers would be supplies, paper, printers, printer ink, equipment, Kevlar vest, uniforms, name tags, galley equipment to feed them, toilets, water cleaning equipment for drinking water, cranes, tanks, ships, aircraft parts, ship parts, all this stuff. Everything has to be paid for. So let's talk for a second about travel. So there's a couple ways you can do travel. You can get a credit card to travel and use the credit card temporarily while you're traveling. You can, when you work for the military or the government, not for if you don't, okay, you can get an advanced. So you can fill out the paperwork and they'll advance you some money so that you can pay for your own travel. Or you travel, you go to your class, your training is already paid for. You pay for your hotel, you pay for your food, you keep your receipts, you come back. You put in your paperwork saying this is how much I spend, and they decide how much they're going to give you. If you went and you bought steak every night, you're not going to get paid for steak every night. If you slept in a 5-star hotel instead of a 3-star hotel, they're not going to pay you $500 a night for your hotel. They're going to pay you what they're allowed to pay you. Okay, so if you use training done by someone contract with the government to provide those training, and the government pays for it, then the government, pays for it. If not, you have to get an approval for it. So if you want to take a course that's, at a college or a university, you would have to ask the government to pay for it, and you would have to show them why this is essential. Okay, so that's how that works. And I think this is where people are getting confused. They're getting confused because they're reading the federal laws and they're saying all the federal laws apply to me. I get this and I get all these benefits and there's this trust for me and I get my utilities paid for. Okay, these things, like I said, are considered businesses. Businesses are districts. Districts are small jurisdictions. Businesses, therefore, are small jurisdictions. What is a school district? It's a jurisdiction under the federal government that receives money from the federal government that goes to the state, and then the state works the same way for its other businesses, like to provide for the post, the things that the post can't provide for itself. Like in the Constitution, there's no authority to build schools or hospitals or a bunch of other things on post. So these people who lived on post, originally they were supposed to stay on post, and they didn't have schools, they didn't have hospitals, they didn't have insane asylums, police departments, fire departments. So they had a contract with the state to come off post and use state services. Well then, because they were coming off and using state services, the federal government had a contract with the states to pay for it, okay? Then you have non-appropriated. If you have appropriated, you have non-appropriated. What are non-appropriated funds? Non-appropriated funds work almost exactly the same way, except you take out the seat, you take out the state, and you take out the departments, and basically you just have each post, okay? So each post has something called Morale, Welfare, and Recreation, MWR. They have the SOS, or USO. I forget what that stands for, but it's for military, right? So non-appropriated funds are things that the post wants to do. So each military post, each installation, each base, a military reservation, whatever you want to call it, each one wants to keep its soldiers happy. Because the happier they are, the harder they work. And the happier they are, the more okay they are with going overseas and coming back and doing fun things. So the Morale, Welfare, and Recreation, or MWR, may be called different things on different posts. Usually it's MWR. They don't get money from Congress. They don't get money from the region. They don't get money from the state. They don't get money from the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marine Corps. They don't get money from them. They have to generate their own money. So they're non-appropriated. That doesn't come from Congress. It's not appropriated. It's not set down as part of the budget for running the military posts. They get their own money. And how do they do that? Well, they go out into the community sometimes and they say to like Best Buy, hey, the Army wants to know if you'll donate some, or this post wants to know, or however they do it, wants to know if you'll donate some televisions for putting up in the television room on post so the soldiers can watch TV and play video games. And Best Buy will say, yeah, okay, we'll donate like 800 TVs, 800 big screen TVs for the military. They might go to the people who make the Xboxes and ask them, can you donate? They might go to wherever. They might go to different, like they do go to these places that have tickets for events, and they ask for discounts, and they'll go and they'll buy the tickets and then they'll resell them on post at a discounted rate, but where they get a little bit of money. They'll have like a hamburger stand where you can go and buy a $2 hamburger. They'll have a skating rink. They'll build a skating rink on post, and they'll charge people to skate. They build child care centers, and the child care centers get money because the military, they use the child care centers, the civilians use the child care centers. So this is how they generate their business, and they generate their own money. Now these businesses, they have to pay their own utilities. They don't get money from the government, so they have to pay their own. And that's why sometimes MWR is a little stingy with its money, because it doesn't get money from Congress. It doesn't just say, well, we need this much and you're going to get us 75% of that, and then, that's what we need money for. They don't get that. They have to advertise and generate their own money to make money to continue their businesses on post, which are for morale, welfare, and recreation. I believe the commissaries, the PXs, and the exchanges are also part of MWR, morale, welfare, and recreation, that are not appropriated. These are the grocery stores and the little shopping stores that have like uniforms. They sell the uniforms. They sell housing stuff like pictures and furniture and all these kind of things, but they get them tax-free. When you shop on there, you get it tax-free. Okay, so appropriated and non-appropriated. Non-appropriated is for the businesses that are run on post that aren't commercial. So like McDonald's, a lot of times they'll put a McDonald's on post, but that's not part of MWR. That's just something that they do for convenience or whatever. And more recently than before, I guess. It was USO and MWR before, and then more recently they've brought in like Burger Kings and McDonald's and Wendy's and all these other businesses on post to help with morale, because before that it was like you just had to eat at the galley. And nowadays what they do is they give you money to eat at the galley, and then they take it back out. So the seat issues money to every soldier to pay for things like housing and food, but then the post, I think, takes it back out. Like wherever they're at, the money goes through the post, and then the post gives the money to the soldier that they want the soldier to have. If they have a galley, they have to pay for their food. If they have housing, they have to pay for their housing. All that comes out of their check. So that's how it works. So all you people out there, or if you hear of people saying the government's supposed to pay for my utilities, it's supposed to do this, it's supposed to do that, you're misunderstanding the federal laws. Federal laws are not for people who don't work for the federal government, or don't live on a military post, or don't work at the seat, or don't work on a military reservation, aren't civilians working for the military, aren't contractors. You don't get anything, okay? You get nothing. You only get what you make out here in the private. The problem is that we use Federal Reserve notes, and these Federal Reserve notes are attached to the banks that were put in place to help allocate and fund the military posts that now have made other branches of banks, which the federal government should have told them that they weren't allowed to do that off military lands, but they have. And so they bring us in there under their commercial system, and then pretend that they have all this government power that they don't actually